Interface Video presents Fairhope Hospice Today. Brought to you by Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Dagg-Murry Law, and the Frank E. Smith Funeral Home.
Hello and welcome to Fairhope Hospice Today. I am Kristin, President and CEO at Fairhope Hospice in Palliative Care, home of the Pickering House, and I am so happy today to be filming from the Pavilion with one of our favorite guests, Dr. Andrew Dagg-Murry. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning.
Hi. Thanks for allowing us to disrupt your day and come to your office and just talk a little bit.
Very good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. So, you and I have been together for a long time,
Yep.
with and without hospice. We
Yep.
go back many, many years. And I'm just really thankful that you're one of our assistant medical directors and you've been such a great asset to our Fairhope team, not only to Fairfield Medical Center and the community, but specifically to Fairhope and myself. So I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. I've been in Lancaster since I moved here after I completed my infectious disease fellowship. That was in 1998, and that was about the time we met because I used to go to one of the local nursing homes where Kristin worked, and I was one of the assistant medical directors for a while. It gave me something to do as I got started, and so I actually came to Lancaster. It was funny, I was in my last year of my fellowship for infectious diseases, and one of the attendings came up to me and he goes, "Hey, I just got this job listing and you should check it out." He goes, "It says it's for a college town in a community near Columbus." And he goes, "I don't know if it's in Westerville or where it's at." And so we didn't know, so we called. And the lady said, "Oh, it's in Lancaster." And I said, "Oh, what college is there?" And it was OUL.
Oh my goodness.
And so I, didn't really know much about Lancaster then, but I did come down. They were recruiting for an infectious disease doctor and visit with everybody. And I was just amazed. It was a small community hospital, and they had, a lot of really great technology. Everybody was super friendly, and they never had an infectious disease doctor. And so it seemed like a great place to work. And plus, one of my very best friends, the best man at my wedding, Doug Pope, and we had met the first day of medical school. He had moved down here to be back home, and so I felt like I knew somebody. And so it just seemed like it was meant to be.
I don't think I realized that you and Dr. Pope were in medical school then the same time.
We met the very first day of medical school. We were in a study to study stress, and the very first day of medical school, they collected blood every hour from us, and we had to eat a special diet, and we had to stay overnight in their research facility at the hospital. And they paired us up by last names, so Murray and Pope were next to each other, and we ended up being roommates, and that's how we met.
Wow, I don't think I knew that because he's from Baltimore area, right?
He is, yeah.
Okay.
And ever since medical school, we laugh, we've always lived like not more than 10 or 15 minutes apart.
Oh my goodness, that's great. Well, both of you, Dr. Pope is such a great advocate too, and it's so good. I can see why you two were fast friends.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
So, and then basically, I've been in the community. I was in practice initially with Dr. Reichman, and then I decided to go out and do my own practice for a while, actually almost 10 years, but anymore it's just really hard to do your own practice, and so I joined FHP at the hospital in 2013.
Okay, so when I met you, you were with Dr. Reichman, and so you came on with his practice, but then the infectious disease part, was that included in his practice? Was that separate when they
Yeah, actually, well, it was weird, really weird when you think about it, like it's 25 years ago. So I had a pulmonary critical care doctor in my call group. Dr. Roof was a cardiologist.
Wow.
And I was the infectious disease person, and so they would call me with patients having heart attacks, and back in that time, all you did was admit them pretty much and start them on some heparin and medicines. It wasn't like today. Now they come in and they get a heart cath right away. So it's just kind of crazy how things have changed.
How much things have changed over the years.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I would not want to be on call for either of those specialties anymore.
No, not any longer, right?
They wouldn't want me to. I have my own thing.
Tell us a little bit just about your day and your work here at Fairfield Medical Center.
Yeah, most days start off in the hospital, and we do rounds over there for half the day, see patients that have a need for an infectious disease consult. I go to meetings and stuff too, and then in the afternoons we usually have clinic over here in the pavilion, and we see outpatients over here.
Okay.
And then I have one half day a wound clinic, and so I do that also.
Have you always felt like you've been doing that for so long? Is that always nice to kind of get back to the wound clinic, to get back to the I don't know, the basics or something?
Wound clinic is nice. It's a lot like infectious diseases. Most people you're going to treat and get better, and then you heal them and they go on. Now, infectious diseases also has some chronic diseases, hepatitis B and HIV, that we kind of have provided. Some of my patients came with me from OSU, so I've known them almost probably 30 years, so it's kind of crazy. And that's crazy how that's changed over the last 30 years.
When you think about, so if someone were to come to the hospital, what would be a reason for you to be consulted? What type of an illness do you...
We see things like patients that are really sick, so we'll call that they're septic. So typically those are some kind of infection. It could be a urinary tract or pneumonia, a gallbladder. We see a lot of the wound patients that are not getting better, that end up, a lot of people haven't been to the wound clinic and they're getting worse, and they come in and they're really got infected wounds or whatever. We see those people. And then there's things like C. diff and blood cultures that are positive. We see all those patients at the hospital.
Okay.
So, like today, I've had 6 consults this morning.
Wow.
So, yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Always a need, right?
One day it'll get like low, and usually my nurse practitioners, they get a little nervous, like we're never going to have another patient. I'm like, don't worry, just enjoy the light day.
Yeah.
It'll pick up tomorrow.
30 years in and you're still...
I'm still busy.
Not worried about that. Yeah.
No.
I think it's so. Since you're a transplant to Lancaster, you've got that down fine after all these years. Lancaster. Most people you can tell when they're not from here.
It's like a chew. It's just one word, Lancaster.
Lancaster. Yeah, you got it. Well, if you have any information or if you have any questions for Dr. Andrew Dagg-Murry, surely you can call here at the Pavilion. But if you have any questions or needs regarding Fairhope or Hospice, please give us a call at 740-654-7077. Our website page is fairhopehospice.org, and we have a very interactive Fairhope Facebook page, social media. So if you ever want to know what's to be in the know with things that are happening, positions that we might be hiring for, events that are coming up, just join us on any of those outlets.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you ended up with Fairhope. What brought you to Fairhope and when?
So there was a big change about, I think, 2010 with how people get certified to be a medical director for hospice. And so they had never had board certification for hospice physicians. You just sort of did it and called yourself a hospice expert. And so the national societies had gone together and created a pathway for people to get certified. And so I think it was Dr. Dunbar was on the board, and he said, you really seem interested, because he was one of our hospitalists at that point at the hospital. And he said, when you're on, you're kind of like helping us figure out who's, kind of should maybe be more end-of-life care and stuff like that. And you just seem really engaged with that. So he said, I think you should think about maybe trying to get certified, because the rule they were going to have was that you just had to work so many hours and have somebody that was already recognized as a hospice medical director kind of write a letter for you, and then you could sit for the boards. And so Dr. Roche agreed to supervise me. He was the main medical director at hospice, and I think I kind of came to rounds and did call for like about a year, and then when he felt like I was like ready, he wrote me the letter, and I sat for the boards and passed them. So.
Wow.
Nowadays, you have to go through, I think, at least a year fellowship. So it's just like for infectious diseases, after you finish your residency, you have to actually do a formal fellowship in order to get certified.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But it was, and I loved it. I don't have as much time anymore because it's gotten busy at the hospital, I guess. I'm not sure how I squeezed it in before, honestly. But I do call, and I also call at the hospital for hospice.
Right.
But I come out on the weekends and do call at Fairhope, but I don't do as much of the team meetings and stuff anymore.
Well, we're going to stay with us for the next segment, and I want to talk just a little bit more about you joining with Fairhope, and let's just talk a little bit about what that's like and what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you, again, have questions about Fairhope Hospice and palliative care, even if you're not sure, a lot of times we run into people, and I think you probably see this every day at the hospital, that maybe are physically ready for hospice, but maybe not philosophically. And sometimes they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to get that process started, even just to answer questions. So if you have questions, you're not sure if you're appropriate for hospice, maybe you're not sure if you're quite ready and you want to talk things through a little bit, give us a call at 740-654-7077 and stay tuned. We'll be right back. What makes Fairhope what it is our staff. It's always a question that we ask, why do you want to be here with us? And what they most always say is, you've touched my life this way. You took care of this person, or I've seen what you've done and I want to do that. And so the staff that have been here know what it takes. They've been on the other side. They see what it takes to make someone comfortable, to make the family comfortable, and really what kind of support they need. And so I think that's what really makes Fairhope what it is.
I want a doctor who listens to me.
From primary care to specialty medicine, we put your needs first by treating you like a person, not a number. Our primary care team will help you identify your healthcare needs and set goals for success, regardless of where you are in your wellness journey. We care for patients of all ages, with offices that are close to you. Whatever you're searching for, you can find it at Fairfield Medical Center. You walked down the aisle and promised happily ever after. Sometimes happily ever after means ending a relationship. We know the conversations are not easy. Deciding what's best for you, your children, and your next steps takes work and communication. At Dagg-Murry Law, we know there are no monsters in a divorce, only people trying to find their way. Local, trusted, experienced. Dagg-Murry Law.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer.
She's on the honor roll.
She's just not the type.
No way.
No way.
No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
It is so important for families to feel comfortable and safe when they call, because oftentimes that first phone call, even picking up the phone physically and just dialing that number, is very hard. You're asking for something that is a very difficult and private decision, and so we want everyone to feel comfortable and safe that you pick up that phone, you make that phone call, and let us just guide you and lead you where you want. And then you can make an informed decision about what's best for you and your family. Welcome back to Fairhope Hospice Today. Thank you for joining us for our second segment, and we are honored today to be with Dr. Andrew Dagg-Murry here at his office at the Pavilion, and we have stolen him away from the hospital and his patients for about an hour, so we're thankful that you're here. And the segment right before that, we were really just talking about what brought you to Fairhope, and really it sounds like we were talking offset here that, you know, Dr. Dunbar saw something in you that he thought would be beneficial for Fairhope, and so that's how that started. And I didn't realize it took you a year to get of some experience to get certified for that.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a certain number. I can't remember if it was just a certain number of hours that was required. Might have been like 1,000 hours, so it took a little while to get that. Or it might have just been whatever Dr. Roche thought was enough.
Yeah, until he thought you were ready, right?
He was very thorough. So.
He was. Dr. Roche is a wonderful physician and wonderful for Fairhope. So I mean, if you think about this infectious disease and being at the hospital every day and seeing what you see, and then kind of taking off that hat and putting on your Fairhope hat and really looking at end of life, you know, how are those two things tied together, and how did you kind of mesh this?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of my training, probably in residency with the HIV patients that we saw then, it was back in the late 90s, almost everybody in the hospital that came in with HIV was probably dying. And I had a really strong attending physician who was head of the infectious disease department, Dr. Robert Fass, and he really believed that physicians should, evaluate a patient, and his analogy was, he would say, if you went to a doctor and they didn't think you were going to survive open heart surgery, they would not offer you. They shouldn't offer you open heart surgery. And even if you say, I want open heart surgery, they don't have any requirement to provide that to you because it's medically futile. There's going to be no benefit. We could make things a lot worse. And so he really felt like that same principle applied to things like DNR status and general care for patients. If you knew that the patient was, not going to be able to survive, you kind of had a duty to let the patient know that that care was futile and then provide comfort to them. And so I got a lot of, that was kind of ingrained into me the years that I was at OSU and worked with him. And that department kind of had that philosophy. So I thought that was like a great philosophy. And I think I kind of built on that once I got here. And we get consulted on a lot of people, and we go by and they're kind of in their end stage of whatever it is. It could be cancer or heart disease or lung disease. And, people kind of have magical thinking about how much antibiotics can do. And they're like, oh, just put them on an antibiotic, they'll get better. And I think we've been pretty good in our service because I have a nurse practitioner that works for me. And we really try to identify those people. And hospice may not be appropriate yet for the person, but most people that have a chronic disease could be in palliative care, which is a little different philosophy.
Right.
And have discussions about what does the patient want? What are their goals? If they want to get 100% better, that we may have to kind of work with them because that may not be possible with a chronic disease like underlying lung disease or cancer that's not responding to therapy. But we can always kind of have those discussions, and then a lot of times you find out that maybe they haven't had those discussions with anybody because they're hard discussions to have. And I think it's because I was just saying some people think that palliative care or hospice are doing nothing, but they're actually the exact opposite. And we like to think of it like we're treating the patient's suffering. So we're not just treating their medical problems, but we're going to add in, or we're going to maybe even switch to just treating their suffering, because that's the most important thing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like Dr. Robert Fast was way ahead of his time in his thinking.
Yeah.
And I like when you're talking about that, because it feels like what he's taught you and what's been ingrained in you has really changed the course of maybe how you practice your medicine. And I think that's so important, because those are really hard conversations, and there are some physicians and families and that can't have those conversations. So when you talk about the difference between palliative and hospice, that's really hard to understand.
It is.
It's hard for people in the community. It's hard for physicians to understand. So the difference really is that chronic illness with palliative, we know that we probably cannot fix that chronic illness.
Right.
But they're not ready for hospice. Their life expectancy is a little longer than 6 months. Maybe they're not philosophically ready. Their body's tired. Their body might be ready, but they're not ready philosophically. So it sounds like you have to do a lot of work every day to have those conversations and really ask people what is most important to you in your treatment plan.
Right. That's right. And I mean, if you believe, they've done lots of studies that show palliative care for people with a chronic disease or cancer that's kind of more advanced, those patients have a higher quality of life. And there are some studies that show they live longer once they're in palliative care and even in hospice than they do without it. So I think that's probably kind of the opposite of what you'd think would happen, but they have looked at it, and that's the data that's come back.
I love that study. I love that study. It's so important, and I think people have a hard time really just grasping how that can be possible, because when you think, like you said, about when you accept hospice services, that aggressive treatment stops. But what the physicians know, and that the families, I think, have a hard time accepting, is no matter how aggressive you may be, those aggressive measures are not going to fix what that problem is.
Well, and sometimes they're a problem themselves. They cause other problems, and they actually make people really sick.
Right.
But also, palliative care and hospice bring so many other things. So it's not just, I'd focus on the medicine when I'm in infectious diseases. I probably talk about other things too, but they're going to have like a social worker. They may have a pastor, some spiritual care, and then I think just kind of knowing that some of these decisions have been made and somebody's kind of talked you through what to expect for you and for your family can be really helpful too. So
I wonder if you see, because I know we see every day that people just sort of have a peace about them sometimes when they've made that decision. Maybe they've not ever been able to have those conversations with their loved one because that's really hard. So you're doing such a great job bringing that to the forefront and having those conversations that are so difficult. And I know that families struggle with that. And so when you can do that, when our nurse practitioners can do that, and your fellow, physicians, that's just a real gift.
And I think the more they hear it, it just seems normal. It's not like something extraordinary or bad or whatever. It's just part of your care. And if we just make it part of the care, that's the way it should be, I think.
Yeah, it's that kind of that smooth transition. Mm-hmm. So, you talk a little bit about the fact that what we can offer with palliative and hospice. Mm-hmm. So when someone is in palliative care, they, like you said, they also can receive social work services, chaplains. I think that's really important because a lot of times we see people who are on palliative care, like I said, their body is ready, but their mind is not, and there's a lot of pieces to it. Maybe they need some financial support and how to get their arrangements made. Maybe they need, help with food and caregiving. And so that's really important for our social workers when they step in to put those pieces together. Then that person can kind of relax and move on to that next, it's kind of a smooth journey then between palliative and hospice.
I'm always amazed when we send in the team and they come back and you find out you're like, well, why does this person, clearly this treatment is not helping them. Why do they want to stay on this treatment? And then you find out after we've had because they spend a lot of time with these people collecting a lot of information, and they have that expertise. You find out, well, this grandmother just wanted to see like her last grandchild graduate from high school. And so if you can kind of focus then on, okay, that you may not make it, but if that's our goal, how can we kind of help that person? Or we've done all kinds of amazing things at Pickering House when patients are in. Like somebody just wants to have an anniversary party.
Right.
Or one lady wanted to go to the beach, I think. And so they brought in sand and I don't know what else.
Beach, I know.
Beach
they decorated
music and balloons and all kinds, umbrellas. And I think they had a party, of course, at the beach in the Pickering House. But that's what was important. And that's what made her ready to accept everything.
Well, I think so that when we talk about those, completion of goals and things that are important to them, that's why hospice is special, because you have that holistic approach where you bring in all these other team members. So you and your co-medical directors work so much on the comfort with the pain management and the symptom management. That's where we can step in, and that sometimes there's spiritual needs, or like you said, maybe they're raising their grandchildren and they need to make sure that's completed. I just can't tell you, and you've seen it too, how many times once those things are completed, that person has peace, and they can, sometimes just kind of slip away because those worries have been taken from them. Okay. So I think that's really one thing that Fairhope does really, really well.
Yeah. We had a dear friend that was out at Pickering House, and she resisted coming, but one of the most important things for her was to have her dog with her, and so that we made that happen. And she was there for quite a while, actually a couple weeks, which is a lot longer than a lot of people are at Pickering House, but it was so important and it made such a difference. It was just that little thing. It
was. I remember that day and in that situation too. And you know what I think was really cool is that her dog wanted to be with her, wanted to lay on her, and she was having some discomfort, and so the dog was a big dog, and he would try to get up, he'd sit right with her. So what we did is we got a bariatric bed, and the bed was huge, and so the dog could lay right next to her, and so, those are the good things that we get to see, you get to see. Yeah. Well, let's talk about something that happened a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about our Fairhope Celebrates Life event. That was our signature fundraising event, and we had that at the Lancaster Golf Club, and we gave some great awards, but you received a pretty special award, I think. It's the President's Leadership Award. And so I've mentioned this probably 100 times that I'm really, that's one of my favorite awards because I get to pick the recipient. And this year I hands down chose you. For a lot of reasons, but you've been with me through lots of different things through the community as I started as a social worker and now as a CEO. But through COVID and the last 2 or 3 years, the 2 years that I've been in place here, you've been there for me every step of the way. A text message, I would call you and I would say, I don't know what to do with this. How can you help me? You guided Fairhope and our team, and I was so thankful for that.
Well, thank you. I was happy to do it. When you were named the person that was going to replace or step in for Denise, I'm not sure anybody can replace Denise, but I thought, wow, she's got big shoes to fill. But I thought, I can't think of anybody better that could do it because I've just enjoyed working with you so much over the years. And so, when you told me about the award, I told everybody when I went up to get it, even though I told him I wasn't going to say anything, but I said, I have to share this, is that I've known Kristin since I literally came to Lancaster, and so getting the award from you as the CEO of Pickering House, or Fairhope Hospice in Pickering House, was just amazing. So it was extra special for me.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
And I'm happy to help however.
Yeah.
So
your advice and your support through this has been amazing. I still think that I text you in the evening with a question, so thank you.
Yeah. Luckily, it was a lot of COVID for the last 2 or 3 years.
Now we're just going to have to text about other things, right?
Which will be okay.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. That'll be perfect.
There'll be something else, I'm sure.
I'm sure there will.
There'll be new challenges. But I think, clearly COVID hasn't gone away. We still people at the hospital that have it, and we've had friends and family that have had it recently. But I think we're in a different phase where, people hopefully won't be as sick, and we won't see as many people sick with it.
I agree. I think we're all ready for that.
Yeah. And I know you guys just got rid of masks.
We did. We got rid of masks. We're seeing faces and smiling faces again, so it's been great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for today.
You're
I appreciate you taking some time out of your day for us. It's always a pleasure.
Yep.
So if you have questions for Dr. Andrew Dagg-Murry or myself or any of our Fairhope team, please feel free to call us at 740-654-7077. Join us on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, social media feeds, and then always on our fairhopehospice.org page for events. I do want to give a shout out for our Trash to Treasure. It will be occurring again the 1st of June, the first week in June. So please save your treasures. Call the office for details. If you watch us on Facebook, we can get some information to you that way and bring out those treasures so we can recycle.
It's amazing how much stuff there is.
I know. And the volunteers...
Come shop.
Right. The volunteers completely run this. The money that they raise from this goes right back in. They always pick a special project to give back to Fairhope that they feel importance for. So we're thankful for our volunteers, our community, and as always, thank you for tuning in.
Interface Video presents Fairhope Hospice Today. Brought to you by Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Dagg-Murry Law, and the Frank E. Smith Funeral Home.